The reservoirs along the Salt River, known as Saguaro, Canyon, and Apache Lakes, were famous for their fine largemouth bass fishing. But a recent invader has been creating havoc with their fish populations.
And a lot of times, a lot of the smaller fish, you'll see a lot of shad die off. Smallmouth bass are pretty susceptible to it. Smaller largemouth bass are pretty susceptible to it. In a way, it sort of suffocates them. And there's really, because these reservoirs are so large, there's really no way to eradicate it.
The nemesis is a microscopic, one-celled aquatic organism called Primnesium parvum, better known as golden algae. The Arizona Game and Fish Department is part of a multi-agency effort to examine and find ways to deal with the invasive species.
Especially in a large reservoir like this, it's difficult, if not impossible, to get rid of. There are certain algicides that can get rid of it. It works in some of our urban ponds. But in a lake like this, it's so big and it would take so much chemical actually to remove the golden algae, and it's likely going to come back that we can only kind of manage it as it is.
This truck is carrying about 150,000 largemouth bass fingerlings, which will be distributed between the 3 reservoirs in hopes of rebuilding the population.
Last fall we stocked about 13,000 6 to 8 inch largemouth bass, and we're going to be doing that for the next year or two. And it'll allow us to evaluate which is better. Is it better to stock 150,000 smaller fish, or 10 to 15,000 bigger fish? It's a way just to evaluate different stocking methods.
The biologists will be able to differentiate between the groups of stocked fish by the way they are marked. For this stocking, they are trying a new method which will mark all 150,000 fish at once.
Before we put them into the lake, we're going to give them a chemical bath called oxytetracycline. And oxytetracycline is a fish antibiotic. It's used to help cure infections. The way it works, we don't use it to cure infections, we use it to mark the fish, actually. And it's a way to mark a bunch of fish, like 150,000 fish at one time. What it does is mix the chemical into the hauling truck, and we bathe the fish in this chemical bath for about 6 hours, and it incorporates into their skeletal tissue. And later on, when we go out to do our surveys in the future, and we're catching fish, and we'll be able to distinguish between the fish that we just stocked, that we're stocking today, and the fish that are naturally reproducing out there in the lake.
Arizona Game and Fish Department couldn't undertake a project like this without the help of its volunteer partners. The United Arizona Anglers Foundation has raised over $18,000, including a donation from Sportsman's Warehouse of $5,000 to help offset the cost of the fish.
When we were approached on this and made aware of the algae and the die-off in the 3 of the reservoirs out here, we got together with all the stores in Arizona and was able to come up with a check to help restock the fish in the lakes. It's just what our company's all about.
The United Arizona Anglers Foundation, which is dedicated to improving warm water fishing in our state, not only contributed money to this project, but they also supplied the boats and manpower to distribute the fish among the lakes.
We couldn't do this without the help of our volunteers. We can't be at 3 places at once, and the amount of manpower that they're providing for us today, it would have been impossible to do without their help. And they've kind of helped us through this process of obtaining the fish. They've donated money, which has been a big help in putting even more fish than we were originally going to put into it. The manpower. Yeah, it's definitely a big thanks to them and all the help that they've provided to us.
Since there are no local warm water hatcheries, these largemouth bass were trucked in 1,200 miles from the Inks Dam Hatchery in Burnett, Texas.
Well, I guess the most interesting thing is, it's really a big responsibility because there's a lot of mouths in there that's got to be fed, taken care of to get to their destination for people to enjoy.
After the fish arrived at the lake and were treated with the chemical bath to mark them, it was time to get them out of the truck and into the lakes.
We'll give you one of the tubs, one of the cans, and then we'll put 2 cans on this boat and have them do probably site 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And if you guys want to do 1, 2, and 3.
Ron Schofield, an avid fisherman and volunteer, was happy to spend his evening helping to restock one of his favorite lakes, and he'd like to see more anglers become involved.
I'm concerned about the lakes, otherwise I wouldn't be here. This is an opportunity for the average fisherman to help, and I'm here.
Once the boats were loaded with their valuable cargo, they headed out across the lake and into protective coves that will provide cover for the young fish. For anglers like Ron, helping to preserve the future of bass fishing in these lakes is a very rewarding experience.
I know that we need the different age classes in the water. This is supplying one of the age classes. These 100 and some thousand little fish we dump today, while some of them will be food for bigger fish, there will be a lot of them that survive. It'll add another age class into this lake. Our job is getting done. It makes me feel really good at what we've done today. Thank you.
Welcome.